There's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. A little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP.
Good morning, Portugal, and I'd like to welcome you to another fantastic day.
Hey, Gumpers.
Bon dia, Alegria. Munson here with Good Morning Portugal show, live stream and podcast. How are you today? The four wise men are in the building this morning. I think I need to tweak my green screen. I was up late last night, tuning up the PC, thinking that if I got rid of a load of old files and broken links and things I don't understand, quite frankly, until AVG tells me to do them, it might help. I don't know if it has helped or not, but you'll see for yourself if the lip sync goes out of control. It hasn't worked. So let's see what happens this morning. Good morning to you. How are you today? Tudo bem? Como estás? Do let us know in the chat. Oh, forgot the banner today. It is Ask Anything About Portugal Wednesday with a little bit of Iberian FM thrown in as well. We might start that early today at 9:30 when Dougie joins us, who has outed himself in the last couple of weeks as truly b-Iberian. And he'll be joining us later on. Here he is talking about his love of, Peñíscola. Stop snickering. Don't be immature, please. It was just the ratio of the photograph. That was just the best way to squeeze it in. Doug's love of Peñíscola at 9:30 today. Good on you, Doug. Looking forward to your company a little bit later on today. Oh, while we're in the picture deck, let's squeeze in that vision. Let's get this out the way, shall we? I think a dad joke warning is in order on this occasion. I need a barrel scraping sound effect.
Warning.
Yeah, we'll return to how to communicate with millennials as a parent. And I think dad jokes are an important part of that. But it's also led on to something else that I want to share with you this morning too. I asked Mr. Data to spell wonton backwards. He said, not now. Okay, so Ask Anything About Portugal Wednesday it is. We have Doug joining us at 9:30. And at 9, after we've had a bit of a gumper gathering this morning, I'm does Doug wear a tie to bed? I think we should be told. Well, let's ask him. You can ask him yourself at 9:30. And Charles, yes. Hola, bon dia, my friend. First time seeing you live. Isn't that great? It was so good. I don't know if you heard me responding to your lovely message on the screen a few days ago. It was so lovely to meet you and your fantastic kids. Your young adult kids. It makes them sound like toddlers, doesn't it? When you talk about lovely kids. But yeah, you should be proud of those your fine son and daughter. Great to meet the three of you. Thank you so much for making the time to fit us into an incredible schedule. Where are you at the moment, Charles? Would you care to reveal where you are in your itinerary at the moment and how it's going and your impressions, please, of Portugal? I'd be so glad to hear your feedback. And it was so great to meet you in person after our 3-year online friendship. We got to know each other, didn't we, in the man cave back in 2020. So great to have you here. Ever at the moment. Good. What's it like? Have you been to the Chapel of Bones yet? Charles, let us know, mate, if you can. And of course, if you want to, you can send photographs to give them their full name to 913-590-303. I feel a bit naked without the Ask Anything About Portugal. So what I'll do is I'll turn it into a ticker tape to make it work. There you go. That's a little bit more bit busy on the screen, isn't it? To stop the cobwebs growing on the screen and tumbleweed rolling across. Where was I going? Oh, yes, a bit of a gumper gathering. And yet there's still always kids, says Ian. That's interesting, that, isn't it? Yeah, I'm having a great time conversing with my eldest, who's in her 30s. That's why. Let's go back to this just very very briefly, and then we'll do a bit of gumper gathering in just a moment. But I was thinking, how do you communicate with your millennial kids in the best possible way? They're quite serious, aren't they? Sorry to talk about them in the third person like this, but just between you and me, I do. And maybe I was quite earnest and serious when I was. I've got a daughter in her 30s and a daughter in her 20s. And I do find them, they seem quite serious. Or is it just when I'm around, they become, they balance things out. They find me perhaps a little bit immature with the dad jokes and all that sort of stuff and larking about. So they feel that they need to lead the way with a little bit of maturity. Perhaps that's it. I'm genuinely inquiring about parenting tips for the parents of millennials, and maybe what it's like to be a kid of baby boomers as well, because that's the other, looking up the tree rather than down the tree, as it were. There is that as well. So that I think is a nice little aside for this community, given our generally our demographic. We've got the tail end of the boomers, haven't we? And perhaps the parenting of boomers, and a few Gen Xers, a few Gen Zers here, Gen Zer in Porto, and the parents of millennials. This was my first attempt. Did you get today's Wordle? Very tough. And I said, I do a turtle every day, thinking that would be quite a funny thing to say to my daughter. It just met with stony silence. And I think she just came back with a few Wordle words. But we are engaged now in Wordle and another thing in the Guardian newspaper, which I think is called Wordiply, something like that. Anyway, so there are a number of these word games that are available. Is it Word? Yeah, Wordiply. Now, what I was wondering as a result of that, and something we could all play together here, is there a Portuguese Wordle, or like a Palavradle, maybe? Can someone help us with that? I don't know if Antonio F or João F are here yet this morning, or anyone who has a grasp of Portuguese sufficient enough. Cookie Koyo, you say it best when you say nothing at all. Look at that. What happened? Was that an emoji that didn't make it through translation, perhaps? Good morning to you, Cookie. Yeah, if anyone knows about Portuguese Wordle, why don't we do that together? And we can have some fun in the mornings, can't we? With the Portuguese Wordle, turtle, whatever we call it. I'm here. Did you ever see Are You Being Served? João de Norte. Are you available, Senor Norte? I'm free. British comedy in the 70s. I think that was a zenith, wasn't it? The azimuth, the great point to which we'll never return. But James is asking a hairy question. Okay, so we'll come back to the hairy questions. We shall say a few hellos. We've got Deagle's got the POTUS with him, POTUS over there with him in Belfast at the moment. So let's see what's going on. Check in with the four wise men, who tend to gather. Well, actually, 7 o'clock this morning, Deagle was typing into the chat. You can do that long before we've started the show. Bon dia, Carl and Gumpers from a cold, dry Belfast, 3 degrees overnight. The heavy rain stopped around 1 a.m. with a light frost to bring the day in this morning. Sleepy Joe. Now, does he call himself that, or is that a little bit derogatory? I wonder. Sleepy Joe. Sleepy Joe last night in Belfast, asking for peace while stirring up the war, it would seem, on another front. But anyway, and yes, I was going to say, let's not talk about politics. I intend to talk about politics at 9 this morning, because there are 2 articles that are really caught my attention. Did we talk about the right-wing World Summit that's happening in Lisbon? I don't think we did, because I think we'd have had much more to say about that. I'm going to return there and tell you about Chega's right-wing World Summit, a big headache for police, which is planned for May, I believe. Yeah, May 13th and 14th. And then a very interesting speech from the defense chief, Gouveia e Melo. Now, I think he was the Admiral Enrique Gouveia e Melo was the gentleman behind Portugal's pandemic response. And he was, roundly applauded for his efficiency in the matter. And I found out this morning that he's actually going to become a presidential candidate. And he made a very interesting speech about democracy is not inevitable. So we will return to that at 9. We'll take your questions, asking anything about Portugal. We might even continue with a little bit of the supermarket talk. Who knew that people love talking about supermarkets and shopping so much? So I think we'll return there as well at around 9. GMP VIP. I was on GoDaddy this morning. That's sorted out now. For those of you who are using the platform GMP VIP, The easy way to find it now is gmpvip.com. So you're welcome. You're very welcome. Let's return then to Deagle's commentary on Joe Biden being in Belfast. I think it was very brief, was it? Was it not? He was in Belfast. He is in Belfast. We'll spend around 8 hours here, then move to the Republic of Ireland for 3 days. He will trace his Irish ancestors in search of the crack there in Southern Ireland. So, some commentators saying he's not spending enough time in the north, but for some of, I guess for his political detractors, that's quite enough, perhaps there. And yeah, interesting, isn't it? Talking about peace in Northern Ireland, and yes, being a little bit of a warmonger, I would say, elsewhere in the world on another front. Coach Turner, bon dia Gumpers, the animals were wandering around 2 by 2 last night, but the sun's back out this morning. Oh, I see. Quite heavy rain in the UK then, by the sound of it. James Slug is in the house. Bon dia Gumpers, feliz a todos. Como está? Tudo bem? Holding up the Portuguese end there. Very good. Love it when you hold up your Portuguese end first thing in the morning. James, would you know of a Palavra Doodle? Is there a Portuguese word game that we could play together, trying to find the longest or solve a Portuguese word mystery or the longest? What I like about Wordiply, it's about finding the longest word using 3 letters that the word must contain. That might be a bit easier for us, mightn't it? Than it might be less of a challenge on our vocabulary. Anyway, if anybody wants to research that and get back to us, and we can have some fun with that in the mornings, that'd be great. God Squad tip of the day then, continuing the sleeping theme, and I don't think anyone did Mrs. M find out about me talking about her snoring? Kind of. Continuing the sleeping theme, athletes will often sleep after a hard training session. What, straight away? Are there changing rooms with beds in athletic stadiums? It allows their bodies to recover, and particularly their nervous system. Yeah, meditation would be good for that as well, I suspect. Nice tip there. So, God Squad tip of the day, if you can, after doing anything strenuous, have a kip. Do Americans say that, a kip? I wonder. That's what my dad used to say. He would often, he only needed to sit down in a chair and he'd be asleep, snoring away. And if I was a little too loud, I would evoke the wrath of a sleeping Satan. Sometimes he would roar at me from his I can still see his face looking at me, kind of angry. No, very angry, waking him up from his a little bit of a power snooze. Different kind of power with his snoozes, I can tell you. Oh, just give my eyebrows a little bit of a comb there. Deep thought of the day then. I think we're staying with Aldous Huxley. We are. The secret of genius is to carry the spirit of the child into old age, and not in a Dalai Lama way. My God. The secret of genius is to carry the spirit of the child into old age, which means never losing your enthusiasm. Isn't that lovely? Thank you, Aldous Huxley, who in his early career published short stories and poetry and edited the literary magazine Oxford Poetry. Portuguese saying to come. So if you can, I think T-Duck and Coach Turner were dancing in the comments, mixing it up a bit. So if you can, grabbing a quick nap, kip, snooze, 40 winks after exercise will help you recover too. Any other euphemisms for sleeping, please? Reading the back of your eyelids, is that right? So Portuguese saying of the day then today, gato escaldado tem medo de agua fria. A scalded cat is afraid of cold water. What? It's the best medical treatment, I think, isn't it? If you're scalded, to have cold water. Any cat is afraid of cold water, is it not? But especially a scalded one. Can we extrapolate that? Find deeper meaning in that? What does that mean? I wonder. Excuse me, I do need to. Just adjust my green screen there a little bit. Okay, that's not fringing quite so badly. It's quite the green tinge, isn't it? Green around the gills often with the green screen technology. Sorry, Coach, thought you were done. They were dancing around in the chat this morning. How lovely and so polite as well. Proper gentleman, upholding the gentlemanly, the knightly ways of the Gumper. I do like to think of us as knights and being gentlemanly as Gumpers. Occasionally we give way to a little bit of puerile humor. I don't know what makes me think of that necessarily, but occasionally we do give way to a little bit of puerile humor. But generally speaking, I think we are upholding the knightly and certainly shrivelous and chivalrous as well. We're a good mixture, aren't we, of chivalry and chivalry, I would hope. Quem sabia? Portuguese is the official language of Portugal, of course. This is good. This is going to go in the factoids on the GMP VIP platform. It is, well, take a little trip there this morning, actually. It is a Romance language derived from the Galician Portuguese, which was spoken in what is now Galicia, or Galicia. And I always want to go into a Antonio Banderas when I'm speaking Spanish. And northern Portugal. So there you go. There are still strong similarities between the Galician and Portuguese cultures. Galicia is a consultative observer of the community of Portuguese language countries. That sounds like a very formal job, doesn't it? Being an observer. That would suit a certain kind of personality, wouldn't it? I'm an observer on the community of Portuguese language countries. Don't step out of line. According to the International English Proficiency Index, you know, the EPI, Portugal has a high proficiency in English, higher than those of other, Spain, France, Italy, bonjour, y que tal amigos, buenos dias, and than those of other Romance-speaking European countries. Yeah, like the Spain, the Italy, and the France. And we love you for it, Portugal. We do. We are trying to learn your language in kind. And we do appreciate the fact that Portuguese seem to not try, but apply themselves to speaking English in far greater capacity and skill than it would be seem to be the case with Spain, Italy, and France. Or SIF is the acronym I'm going to give those three countries this morning. Dad jokes are looking good, very good. Oh dear. Airplanes and escalators this morning. Bon dia a todos from Francis, the Portugal son. Good to see you, mate. And you, Andy. Good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. From Andy Klein. And bon dia, Portugal. A great big greeting. We didn't get any photos of your birthday, Marcus. How was it? Do let us know. Yes, does Dougie wear a tie to bed? I suspect he does, and he can just get straight up in the morning. Or he's got one of those, you know, like those integrated dicky bow and white dinner shirt combos. He might have that. He might have a stick-on tie, mightn't he, on a formal-looking shirt, and he just has those as pajamas, or he can just go into it Wallace and Gromit style first. That's more him, isn't it? A machine that drops him into his shirt and tie combo blazer thing going on there. Well, let's find out. We can ask him directly. I'll put a star on that comment. Victoria's here with an Hola Bon Dia Kids. We've got a video from Doug as well, because he is back in the UK, but we've got a video of him saying goodbye to Portugal. Hola Bon Dia Kids. I wonder how he said it. Did he say te já, até breve, até próxima, ciao ciao, adios? I wonder. We'll find out in the video. Hola Bon Dia Kids from a sunny Praia de Rocha this morning from PDR. We've got a meetup. I was having a little bit of fun with Victoria on the Portimao meetup Facebook page. There's people joining that, like one or two every day. We've got a pretty good following community with our Silver Coast San Martino de Porto meetup. About 150, I think, on our WhatsApp list. But certainly that Portimao meetup is very, very popular. Bon dia alegria from Pete, back in the country, or, sandstorms in Egypt. Very nice of you to pop in and be with us. What time is it there, Pete? It's not that different, is it, in Egypt? I don't think. Hola, bon dia. Loving a bit of a rainy day up here. That's good for your sod, your turf, your lawn, is it not, Joao de Nort? Excellent stuff. Yeah, and kids, if they're your kids, they're still, there are 80-year-olds, aren't there, who've got children, of course, of 60, I guess. And when I first saw some, like an elderly person of 80 or 90 introducing their 60 or 70-year-old son or daughter, it's a double take, isn't it? But yes, hopefully that will be us one day. Sandstorms then in Egypt, and smash that like that smash button, folks, if you will. Question, Carl, were you the same at 20 to 30 as you are now? In many ways, yes. I would like to think I've finessed a few things that have made life a little bit easier, but not all of them by any means. Was I the same? This is in relation to being the parent of millennials, isn't it? So was I the same at 20 to 30 as I am now? I think I need to throw the phones open for some of the content and questions we've got this morning. Have I got a banner? Have I still got a banner for that? For calling the show. Let me just put the Bluetooth on so that's possible. I think I need to turn the Bluetooth on the phone. Let's get ready for that now and have a little bit of possibility of people calling in this morning, which will be good fun. And a bit of Iberian FM. I think we'll go Iberian FM at around 9:30 this morning. I think we are now connected. I have to take my Wi-Fi off. I think that makes it work better. So we are available, I believe, for calls. So was I the same at 20 to 30 as I am now? No, I think I was a lot more intense and earnest, and that's what I can appreciate. And I'm not criticizing the millennials for being quite serious. But no, I wasn't, and I suppose that is the point you might be making there, James. You might want to call in to elaborate on that. Lovely town in Evora. We've been to the Bone Chapel. Who had the idea to build a chapel out of bones? This is a beautiful country. It sure is, Charles, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. Any photos, any other memories you've got, you know where to send them. Antonio F is here. Is there a Wordle, a word apply, or a word game we can play together, Antonio F, on the screen here? One of the things about our French trip was no internet, so got to really know my kids more. Parent of millennials, right there. I see. Okay, yeah, they are. I mean, I'm sure if I'd had the internet as a teenager or a 20 to 30 something, what did I have it as a 30 something? I did, didn't it? That's when the internet came in. Really, in my lifetime, probably, yeah, just as about 30. So that's interesting. They are quite glued to their phones, but then again, so am I a lot of the time. Good morning to you, Jacqueline Branco. Thank you for your help last night on the. We didn't get to motoring. We covered cost of living themes, including food, supermarkets, the mercados, and Copa, my favorite shop, Copa, which is only really available around the Silver Coast area, Rio Mayo, Santarém, and Leiria, only up as far as Marinho Grande. But it's what a great shop that is. And then we did a little bit of health insurance, but that was about it. That was as far as we could get last night. And thank you for your help and specialist input on that, Jacqueline. Is it the hairy question about maybe being between 20 and 30 there? We all had a fantastic time together. So there you go. Do they not have the internet? Have they burnt it down or something in France? Why is that? Or did you turn off? Did you tell your kids there was no internet in France, but you just turned off the mobile data by Randy? Bon dia, Victoria, from a still sunny Lisboa. So I think rain might be on the way then, perhaps heading from the north to the south. We could have a look at the weather now, couldn't we? Should we do that? Yes, let's. Because I was looking at it earlier on. Let's bring the weather onto the screen. It's funny how we didn't look at the weather much during the winter, did we? But here it is, as it's warming up and looking a lot brighter. I wish I'd put socks on this morning. My feet are cold under the desk here this morning. A little bit of a clue to my state of undress. I do have trousers on, I hasten to add. Not a mankini under this shirt, and no tie, but I'm sure Doug will be appropriately dressed. Let me put something a little bit more cheerful and colourful on behind the scenes there as well. Let's have our Portuguese. That's not now. There you go. They all look the same. A bit confusing. So looking at the weather then, Lisboa, as Antonio F says, 15 degrees at the moment. That's 59 in the Fahrenheit. And it will be a high of 66 in Fahrenheit, 19 in Lisbon. There's no forecast for rain. Porto, however, 14 degrees is the high. Predicted high with light rain. Coimbra, overcast and cloudy and rainy with a high of 15. Faro down in the south, looking gloriously sunny, a high of 21. Braga, as you might expect, light rain. 15 degrees a high, currently 13. Aveiro is going to be rainy, Beja cloudy, or foggy, actually, in fact. So rain in some... Oh, Leiria, it might be rainy for our meetup today between 1 and 3 at San Martino de Porto. That's going to be interesting then. But we'll be undercover. Viseu has rain as well. Santarém, a high of 18 today. Bragança, no rain but cloudy, a high of 12. Guarda, rainy and cold, actually, but relatively speaking. Porto Alegre, 17 the high. Setúbal, 19 the high today. Scattered clouds in Setúbal. Viana do Castelo, light rain. What was that? Something just dinged in the background. Villarreal, light rain as well. And let's have a look at the Azores and Madeira. Madeira, 7 degrees at the moment, going to be rising to 12 and sunny. Azores, 18 the high, currently 14, and a cloudy day. Broken clouds there. So there you go. There's your GMP weather this morning. Let's get back. It's still the Gumper Gathering. We do this between 8:31, don't we? And around 9 o'clock. And we're going to get political at 9. So trigger warning, and see what happens internally as you... Oh, we have a caller, don't we? A caller to the Gumper Gathering. I better answer that. Let's see who's calling us this morning. Need to go. Don't hang up just yet. I'm trying to get there. It is the Slug. Good morning to you. I think it's through to explain yourself. We're listening, caller.
Well, you invited me, so I had to show up.
Of course. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Later in the comments, I made more comments about it. I was trying to make a joke, which sometimes doesn't go over too well, as we all know. Anyway.
That's part of being a dad as well.
So you don't have to find the two further comments I made on it, because people are commenting so fast. They go 3 or 4 in between. My following comment was, I think in addition to fundamental personality characteristics, young adults can be more focused on survival than perhaps they ever have been before.
Yes.
And starting families, having jobs, paying rent. So they feel there's less room in their life for lots of jovial, prankster kind of humor.
Yeah.
Often, not always. And then following that, I said, and of course, our job as parents is to try to make them laugh and embarrass them, and their job is to roll their eyes and tell us how stupid our jokes are.
Well,
so
I'm doing well. I'm doing well on that.
Yes,
on that analysis.
So, yeah, you can measure your success based on that.
Thank you, James. That's so
great
reassuring.
Job, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes.
As a therapist, as a therapist working with teens, I made it a point to have them roll their eyes and tell me how stupid my jokes were, because it opened things up a bit. So.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you for that validation. I would like a certificate, like successful parent to millennials certificate would be fantastic. And lots of love to them.
There you go.
I think you make a really good point. They are up against it, aren't they? I think you said this on Monday. They are up against it in a way that perhaps we weren't so much, and previous generations haven't been. So lots of love to them.
Well, in a different way, I really try to pay attention to the old man, the old person attitude, the get off my front lawn kind of guy that I don't want to become. And I think generationally,
yeah.
Wow, it took a lot to get out. Parents have been saying this, I think, into ancient history. They've always been talking about, the differences between them and their kids, and how tough their kids had it, or how easy their kids have it, or whatever it is. So I don't want to become that old guy, and make those kind of stereotypes. But yeah, I think that at that stage in life, we're far more challenged, and we're busy trying to become something different than our parents when we're becoming parents ourselves, and getting jobs and those kinds of things.
Yes.
I don't want to be like them.
Exactly.
So,
that's
anyway.
that's quite the driver, isn't it? They don't want to make the same mistakes. They could just find a different way of making mistakes, because that's part of our job as well, isn't it? I think
and if we push it, they'll really let us know how we screwed up. So you might not want to push it too hard.
Well, the good news is plenty of work for psychotherapists, James?
Absolutely. It keeps me working.
All right, mate. Thank you so much for calling in.
Right,
Always good to hear your voice. Have a great day. A shout out. And I think, one more thing before you go. I suppose it's how we consider the word we, and that is with one E. Is the we all of us, the generations before us, the generations after us, or just this generation that we're talking from? And I think that's quite an important and useful perspective, isn't it? Although we can look at the generations before and after, and look at our kids' generations, it's important to have the collective we, isn't it, that embraces all of us, rather than us all hiding. I see a lot of that. I don't like it. I don't like to see the generations kind of circling the wagons, and drawing in on themselves, and just being introspective from their own generational basis or base. It's really important that we have a big collective we. Who doesn't like a big collective we in the morning, James?
Woo! Let's call that a men's room.
Okay, mate. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
My pleasure, always. You too.
All right. And that's how easy it is to call in, folks. There you go. 913-590-303. All right, great stuff. Oh, here's my word query. Thank you very much. I was hoping you'd bring this up this morning, Joel Denot. What is the difference between the words bonita and the words linda? Because you accused me of throwing a random woman's name at you yesterday. You sent me a picture, and it was a beauty. Oh, can I show it? Can I show the picture? That caused me to say linda, which is one of my favorite words, I've got to say. And isn't it lovely to be called linda in this culture, meaning beautiful, of course, which I suspect is the etymology, derivation, generally speaking, of the word Linda, the name Linda, beautiful. The Lindas I've known are beautiful. The Lindas I have and do know are beautiful. So let's bring that picture onto the screen and see if you're moved to say bonita or linda, and perhaps Antonio F can tell us the difference. There it is. There's that beauty of a pic there. Pam took that of a sunset up in the north there. Linda or bonita? I wonder. You let us know, especially you cunning linguists who would know the difference between that. Okay, thank you very much, João Denot, for that question this morning on Ask Anything About Portugal Wednesday. Dougie joining us at 9:30. As we know, both mean beautiful. However, in English, we have nuances such as pretty, cute, gorgeous, etc. Three quite similar Portuguese words, but with different meanings. Avô, avô, and avô. There, thank you. Are you going to explain to us, please, Antonio, what's going on there? And I know that grandma and granddad, but what's the other one? What's the one I don't know? I think without the accent there. Paul Richards, good morning to you, Paul. Greetings from the Algarve, sunny and living up to the great weather we get in the Algarve. Smashing, lad. Excellent. Well done. And what I love about Biden is he made it quite clear, and that's not often he does that, to be fair, that the special relationship is with Ireland and definitely not the UK. Yes, he pushed Rishi Sunak. Did he get his name right this time? He pushed him out of the way, didn't he? And just gravitated to the person in uniform. That was a very strange bit of video. Absolutely love the nails in the Brexit coffin being hammered in. That eventually, Pete, I think if you're enjoying the hammering of the nails so much, it's going to come right through and into your own foot. Let's be a little bit... I don't know. I can understand your Brexit position, but ultimately, dancing on. There must be a Portuguese saying, mustn't there, that if you dance on a grave too long, you're going to end up in the hole with the skeleton. Perhaps, I don't know. OMG, Barandi, that takes a charm that few possess. What was that? Was that something to do with France? I wonder. Did I miss something there? Okay. Or is that a family speaking to other without the internet? Okay. Está tudo bem? E por aí? Antonio F is asking Victoria there. Sorry, I'm nosing into your conversations. Forgive me. This started with a pic Pam took. There it is, and I'll put that back on then. Carl responded, Linda, and I assumed he was tossing random ladies' names at me. I would never do that. Well, maybe I would. Okay. I must be a crazy smart genius. We always say that about you when you're not listening. I often sleep briefly after a hard lunch. Carl and Mrs. M, when you're available, we would like to invite you to our association. Oh, that's very kind. That is a lovely invite. I've had a couple of lovely invites this week. I had an invite to go and take part in a walking, talking Stubal market tour, which I think we'll do at some point. And now this, how lovely, Jacqueline. Thank you very much. Associação MVC, Movimento Viver e Conselho Caldas da Rainha, just to meet and say hello and see what we do. Would love to. Checking for light leaks. What's that? Is that my PC you're talking about there? It's leaking something or other. Okay, we're going to get some explanation here on gato escaldado de agua fria tem medo. Is a synonym for be of extra careful. As someone that has already been scammed. Once bitten, twice shy. Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you very much for that. Cheers, Antonio F. From what I've been able to learn, bonita is beautiful, as in lovely and pretty, whereas linda is or lindo, of course, in the masculine, is beautiful, as in gorgeous and stunning. And maybe that is a clue. I don't often hear bonito. You hear bonita and you hear linda and lindo. So maybe, yes, where you could use it more for male and female is where you would use linda, lindo, and bonita. More for feminine, female adulation. Antonio F. Portuguese and Galician are very similar languages, as they have exactly the same recent root. The language is the same, and that is recent in terms of language, isn't it? 500 years. Interesting. Important question. Okay, I wondered if this was some kind of hideous euphemism that I was walking into, but I think it's okay. Thank you, Pete. Important question to all you fellas of a certain age: top deck shandy or bass shandy? My mum, who was a publican for a little while, made me a shandy from the tap that I took on a school trip. Sadly, the Tupperware failed, and some children were showered in shandy, properly made shandy, pub shandy, and smelt of shandy for the rest of the trip. And I think my mum, what was she thinking? I think she packed me off with egg sandwiches and that Tupperware full of pub shandy. I do not. So I was lucky. I was spoiled. I was drinking alcohol at higher quantities than either Top Deck or Bass, and not base shandy. That's probably something different, isn't it? Okay, Egypt is on the same time as Spain for your next Stuart interview, Carl, an hour ahead. Fantastic. Thank you for that, Pete. How I understand it as well with the proper masculine feminine adjustments, claro. Okay, so what? I'm missing a lot here. There are things that are not coming through for me that they are for you. Anyway, I'm glad for you that you're getting the whole conversation. And as James said, very, very vociferous this morning in the chat, and I'm not complaining. Tomorrow is our monthly meetup. Oh, thank you, Victoria. Excellent. That'll be Casa Inglesa at Portimao. Stop in and say bon dia. Now, it's not all fish and chips, is it, at Casa Inglesa? I saw a really nice cake selection. It's very Portuguese, I think, despite being called Casa Inglesa. So tell us more about that, if you will, please, Victoria. Keep following the feed. There's more. I'd be happy with fewer word games. I think my wife is, sorry, mate. Okay. Can you ask her then? Is there a Portuguese one that we could all do? Apart from you, of course, as you come here for respite from that, where she's shouting out at you. It needs to be 7 letters containing an F and an A. How is Bella? Oh, yeah, Bella as well from Linda, or are they interchangeable? Oh, my goodness. Antonio F has got his work cut out this morning. Bass Shandy, never. Was it Top Deck, the other one? My aunt's husband was known as Bass. His surname was Worthington. And I was thinking as well, I was talking to Mrs. M about her barmaid days, and she hadn't heard of the bitter top, I don't think, or a light and bitter. These are all from the same period of British drinking, aren't they? Light and bitter, bitter top, bitter dash, I think some people call it as well, which is the bitter beer of the British. Who'd have thought it, that they would have a beer called bitter? They're special Brexit bitters now, Pete. So yes, these are all from a different time, and I don't think those drinks are quite so popular. Indeed, Becky G. Rogers. Hi from Devon. How you doing, Becky? I know you love a bit of Portugal from time to time. Great to see you here. Thank you for being here. Age-related seriousness. Was at a great party on Saturday night. Not funny. None of the youngsters, late teens, early 20s, were drinking. Wow. Now, that's an interesting trend, isn't it? They're not that fussed about the alcohol, are they? Turning their backs on, I've heard they're turning their backs on sex and alcohol. I don't know about all drugs, but sex and drugs and rock and roll. I think they like the music. And that would be a sad day, wouldn't it, when a generation, I mean, and maybe has a film been made about a generation that didn't indulge in, there is a movie, isn't there, where there are no children happening, which is my oblique reference to sex, which has its other purposes, of course, for hedonistic enjoyment, as well as the proliferation of the race. I see that the Portuguese birth rate is up. Well done, Portugal. Portuguese people have been enjoying themselves and creating babies. But anyway, I digress away from your comment here. Yeah, I think the millennials are less into boozing. But then again, if they've had all that time to look at the older generation being drunk and awful, maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's part of what's informing it. It was the old ones that disgraced themselves. Did you really go that far? And that's quite polar, isn't it? It's when you're sober, it ain't much fun being with drunks, I don't think. Interesting, Coach Turner. Another insight into the generations there. I'd say Bella is a bit less than Linda in terms of beautiness. Thank you very much, Antonio F. Thank you for working hard this morning. The Outlaws. Oh, I see. No mod cons. Old school Portuguese. Trottinetting. and fixing stuff. Proper entertainment. A pile of things to fix. That is entertainment, isn't it? From a Jam song coming on there. I think I'm a lot closer to my kids in outlook than my parents were to me. Now, that's a thing, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's true. That us lot, notwithstanding what I'm saying about some of the differences here, we do have a lot more in common and are a bit closer, I think. Yeah, interesting. Avo, of course. And isn't there a musician called Avo Part? Avo is part, as in 1/16 of Avosh, 1 of 16. Avo, grandfather, and Avo and Avo, grandfather and grandmother. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jacqueline, for that invitation. That's very nice of you. Have a great day, folks. I have much to do. He'll catch up on the podcast, no doubt. Smash that like button. And how about clicking that join button? Yes, probably the best value at the moment is to join as a GMP VIP. It's €9 at the moment. It will rise to 19 for the package of membership, and I'll allude to that in just a moment, a little more. But that's probably the best thing to do at the moment if you want to support what we do. And I would say get some pretty good value yourself as well. Go to coffee.com/GMP/tiers. And now I will put, to make that a little bit easier, I will put that in. Oh, since I changed, since I cleaned the computer last night, trying to make it run a little bit smoother, guess what happened? Yes, of course. I got rid of all the cookies and a 404. That's not meant to happen. Mrs. M, yes, please. Oh, no, nothing too serious. Have you come in to ask me if I'd like a coffee? Yeah. You're the best. I was hoping you would. Hot milk if possible and honey. Yeah. Bit fussy, aren't I? And I'm really hungry, so a nice chewy coffee would be fantastic. Chewy. Well, you know what I mean? Nice full-bodied cup of coffee. So I hope this will work. I think that link will work. If you want to support us and get a hell of a lot of value as well, I think some of the GMP VIPs who are here this morning will vouch for that. And there's more and more in there every day. Oh, AAP Carl will need a link. You certainly will, Dougie. And we look forward to exploring your love of Peñíscola. Peñíscola, I think, is probably a much better way to say it. Link's coming over to you, Doug. And I think we should play a video for you of you leaving Portugal before it gets too late. Okay, so let me do that now, and I'll bring that to your screen now. And in anticipation, as a warm up, this is Dougie Foreplay.
Well, it's 4:15 in the morning, and it's time for me to make a move and say goodbye to Cortera. Right, guys, I can relax now, because basically it's time to hit the road. Of course, the higher you come up, the better the views. And have a look across with me here. There you go. An Algarvian chimneyscape. I can't help thinking that magnificent view across is just one of the most spectacular. It really is. Another famous view of Serpa, and this is where you access the castle and the museum, but today, of course, it's closed. This could be a piazza in Italy. Absolutely gorgeous, this. Look at that, it's just so picturesque. That's it, my Gumper friends. It's ciao for now. And back over to Mr. Carl Munson.
Hey, Owen, bon dia to you. Thank you, Doug. That's fantastic. Thank you for the feedback about the VIP platform as well. Going to take you there in just a moment. Morning, Owen. You'll find Owen there as well. I'm a VIP member. Very impressed with everything in there. And when you said tears, yeah, levels would be better, wouldn't it? I heard tears with an EARS and got a good chuckle. Seriously, though, glad to be a VIP. Fantastic. Let's have a look there now, because I was going to ask you about your favorite supermarkets, because there was a lot of chat about that last night. This is our platform. There are no ads. You'll see immediately. There are no ads there. I was going to say it's less noisy. There's me making a lot of noise, but not all the ads and stuff like that. So let's go into useful information. This is the classroom section of what we do. Oh, it's right there. And I wanted to ask you very quickly. There's a list and links to all the websites of the main Portuguese supermarkets. Forgot to have E. Leclerc last night when we were doing this, but these are all the subheadings. Sorry, the headings, and they're the subheadings of this particular part of the cluster. Useful information, Expat Academy. Events and meetups, expat organizations, government society, etc., etc. And then I was going to ask you this morning, I'm using this as my aid memoir. Which are your favorites? Because we talked for ages about these last night. I think about 40 minutes talking about supermarkets. We've got the Aldi, the Auchan, Continent, E. Leclerc, Intermarché, Lidl, Mercadona. My new favorite, I've got to say. Their salad boxes are incredible. Their takeaway stuff is really good. The Bifana at Mercadonald's, as our family call it, is really good. The burger's good, the Bifana's good, and the salads are fantastic. I had a lovely picnic at the weekend, and I enjoyed a few of those things. Mini Presso, my least favorite, I've got to say. It seems so kind of bare and grim in there, but I'm sure it has its benefits as well. Pingados and Ubiquitous, globally ubiquitous Spa. Which of those are your favorites, friends? Okay, let me just take that off the screen and do a little bit of politics before we come to Doug. Very nice video. He does make an amazing video. A few of them, and not enough of them, are up on our YouTube channel. Doug, I need to speak to you about that to make sure that we've got all the catalogue up there on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, mate, for your diligent work, and we'll see you soon in a few minutes as well. Just want to cover this political situation in Portugal. Oh, Dougie's in the green room and he was lying on his side. He was having one of those power naps already. So let me bring this onto the screen before we go to democracy is not inevitable. Interesting times here in Portugal politically. Perhaps they always were, and my lack of good Portuguese, proper conversational Portuguese, means that I'm not up to speed. I suspect I would be much more. That's the problem, I think, with becoming very good at Portuguese, is you can begin to understand what people are saying when they're talking about politics in the cafes and bars. I'm not sure if I want to go to that level, quite frankly. It's enough seeing it translated into English here on the Portugal Resident. Lidl and Aldi, favorites of Ali. Good morning to you, Ali. I'm not sure I said good morning to you yet this morning. So let's have a look then. This is an interesting situation for the police, at the very least, in Portugal, in the capital, in Lisbon. Chega's great right-wing world summit. Look at this. There's a right-wing world summit happening in Portugal. A big headache for the police. Bolsonaro has been confirmed, has Matteo Salvini. I think that's the Italian number 2, which I think his opponents call him. Invites have been sent to Trump and Le Pen as well to come to Portugal. The presence in Lisbon of various leaders of the world's extreme right promises to be a big headache for the PSP police, who will have to guarantee security for those taking part in the summit between May 13th and 14th. And from a free speech point of view, you've got to appreciate it, haven't you? And then there's the concerns that democracy is not inevitable. The next article I'll read is pointing to the uneasiness that would, of course, be around such a rally and the people it might attract. So says Correio da Manhã tabloid today. This was reported 4 days ago. Thank you, Natasha Don. Following up on a video statement recorded by Andre Ventura. It's a cool name, isn't it? Whatever you think of the guy, Andre Ventura is a bit of a sort of Hollywood name, leader of Portugal's right-wing party, Chega. I won't play the video, but I'll tell you that according to his statement, the presence of Jair Bolsonaro, Matteo Salvini, and many other leaders of the European right places Lisbon as one of the strongest new centres of the right in Europe. He's saying that, I'm not sure that's true, is it? As one of the strongest new centres of the right in Europe and one of the world references in the fight against socialism, the fight against impoverishment, the fight against globalism, the fight against federalism, the fight against gender ideology, the fight against for the dignity of those who were, I think that's the fight against for the dignity of those who work for those who live at the cost of those who work. So some pretty strong themes there that are likely to trigger, hopefully stimulate the right sort of debate such that that we can live together in peace. Weren't the left and the right wing the balances and checks on a sensible society once upon a time before we ended up with these terrible polarities? CM Correio de Manhã suggests that the Lisbon summit aims to emulate events put on by the ultra-conservative American movement championed by former President Donald Trump. Thus, my commentary here, thus ending up as just, ghettoized political events of no meaning, and a lot of heat and fury and very little political light, I would say. Mr. Trump has already been sent an invitation to the summit, as has France's right-wing icon Marine Le Pen. Confirmed for the event already are Bolsonaro, the Italian deputy prime minister, Italian number 2, also Geert Wilders of Holland's Freedom Party, Tino Schupralia, president of Germany's alternative AfD party, and Santiago Abascal of Spain's Vox party. So you get the gist there, and it's a bit of a headache. They were thinking of putting it on at Campo Pequeno, but that might not be. It's an old bullfighting stadium, isn't it? Turned into a shopping centre, I believe, an auditorium. So that's where they were thinking of doing it, but it may be a problem from a point of view of security. That's going to be a very interesting event with perhaps the world's gaze on Portugal. For such an event that I wouldn't have seen coming, quite frankly, here in Portugal. I will share with you now, democracy is not inevitable. This is also very interesting from, I think, a bit of saber rattling, and I think I can use that well in this context, because we have the Admiral, who probably has a saber as part of his ceremonial attire. Here he is, and his quote, "Democracy not inevitable," says Defense Chief Gouvier Melo. I'm going to balance this by putting on our normal background. What's good about your morning? I'm sorry if I've upset it talking about politics this morning, but I think we can talk about politics without necessarily getting upset. It's a good test, isn't it, of a steady-headed person. If it fails, a new generation of autocrats will take reins of power at a time. This is the article, Natasha Donegan, yesterday's Portugal resident. At a time of heightened political dissatisfaction, and some would say deterioration, Portugal's Chief of Defence Staff, Admiral Enrique Gouvier Melo, has warned that democracy is not inevitable and must be defended and nurtured. Speaking at a conference just up the road from here, from me in San Martino de Porto on Silver Coast, he was at Porto de Mos Leiria on the 10th, by the sound of it. And as part of a cycle of celebrations for the 50th anniversary of Portugal's own democracy, celebrated, of course, on April 25th, 25 de Abril, he described a world divided between autocracies and democracies. And I think this is part of the run-up to his possible election as president. If democracies fail to present convincing arguments about the importance of political freedoms, or if citizens become disillusioned with the way they are governed, that's your problem, I think, right there. A new generation of autocrats will be very willing to step in and take the reins of power, he warned. Students of history will see this, won't they? History doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And I think he's hit the nail on the head there. It's very important to address this disillusionment, isn't it? The sort of thing Pete was talking about. Brexit, great example. If they succeed, the world will become more violent. That's the new generation of autocrats. And they're not all crazy right-wingers, are they? Other autocrats are available. And if they succeed, the world will become more violent, corrupt, and dangerous to live in, says Lusa. In the speech where he spoke about the end of the Cold War, Gouvier Melo pointed out that the destructuring of ideological systems of reference, some negative effects of globalization, and a disastrous set of international policies have revived dormant nationalisms and identity and religious extremisms fracturing international society. Interesting stuff, huh? Democratic governments may not be more wedded to peace than autocracies, but it is well established that democracies rarely go to war with each other, he said. Good point. Addressing the geopolitical and geostrategic framework, the resurgence of autocracies and the challenges of democracies, the Admiral described how the advance of autocratic regimes has generated concerns about the weakening of democratic institutions, the erosion of civil rights, and the threat to press freedom. In a reflection of the changing balance of financial power. Now, there's another thing. The spotlight is not too much on that, is it? The massive transfer globally of wealth from poor to rich. Autocracy, sorry, I'm adding a lot in here. Natasha Don didn't say that last bit. What she said was, in a reflection of the changing balance of financial power, autocracies are increasingly funding democracies. He went on, which is worrying with Western economies dependent on capital flows from the Chinese and Persian Gulf economies. Interesting. And it'll be also interesting to know where the funding's coming from for this so-called kind of right-wing convention. Who's paying for that, I wonder? What is their agenda? In the context of the challenges of international cooperation, the rivalry between democracies and autocracies presents significant challenges. As in an increasingly polarized world, collaboration on global issues has become more difficult, and nations are increasingly reluctant to work together in areas such as trade, security, and the environment. It's not that difficult, is it? But it does seem to be. The man who became a national hero during the COVID vaccination campaign. So I've got my man right there. He did spearhead the pandemic response. Described how the Russian invasion of Ukraine produced the greatest unity and urgency among democracies in the last 40 years. Western democracies have united around common values such as freedom of expression, the protection of human rights, and the defense of democratic rule. But not all so-called democratic countries are so good at that, are they? Anyway, by autocratic nations like Russia and China have positioned themselves as alternatives to the Western democratic model, offering their own revisionist vision of political and economic development. Portugal, as a nation state, small and limited in its relative power in the concert of nations, that's a nice turn of phrase, should take it into consideration in formulating its policies. The world is not and does not seem to be moving towards global peace, and no international legal system per se will fully protect Portuguese interests. Some say it is the most peaceful it's ever been, however, wanting to bring some balance to this. Portugal, and I'm not saying it's peaceful, but I'm saying it's some commentators suggest it is more peaceful than it's ever been. Portugal will not be free from being dragged, in the view of the coalitions it belongs to, the position and space it occupies geographically in its interest, to a more central and heated zone of conflict between the two blocs. He continued. Admiral Gouveia Melo is increasingly tipped as a successor to the. This is it, isn't it? This is why I think his personal agenda is exposed here. He's making these speeches and declarations, I think, as part of his presidency campaign. And President Marcelo will, of course, step down at the end of his second mandate in 2026. So the Admiral getting ready to be in that position and put himself in the public light. Back in November last year, a poll conducted for Expresso showed that the majority of Portuguese thought he would be a very good president. Since then, there has been the Mondego mutiny, in which his stance was seen as overly autocratic. Well, there's an irony there, isn't there? A military man talking about democracy, and then being seen or described as autocratic in his management of the Mondego mutiny. That was an interesting situation, but the fact that he is not a former politician could elevate him considerably in the public's eyes. Yes. So there you go. In his opinion, this is interesting. It's not the Admiral's opinion. Writing in Correio da Manhã today, Deputy Editorial Director General, that's quite a title, big business card. Eduardo Damaso runs through the issues damaging national politics today, suggesting they are not, in the end, the biggest problems for the country's leaders. In his opinion, the biggest problem is the growth of the right-wing party Chega and an Admiral who could also end up in Belém. So he's not happy with Chega or the Admiral. That would be Eduardo Damaso. I thought that was interesting. I wonder if you did too. It's 9:30. We're going to bring Dougie onto the screen, who may want to talk about that with us and you as we go to the comments. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring forward the Iberian FM and get Doug jiggy with it, as it were, this morning with a throbbing beat. I think he likes 4 on the floor, and a throbbing beat. Where's the music gone though? I think I've lost it. Oh no, I haven't. Here it is. Proudly b-Iberian, and that's what he's going to talk a little bit about today. Proudly b-Iberian. It's Douglas Hughes, writer at the Portugal News and great Lusophile. How are you, Doug?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Carl.
We had a question earlier on, Doug. Great to see you, mate. Thank you so much for being here. Does Doug wear a tie to bed? I think we should be told.
Sometimes. Just the tie, though. Nothing else.
Oh, good luck, sir.
Mm.
I like that. A very good response, and I can see you in my mind's eye. Not that I necessarily,
wow.
not that I necessarily want to, but I think the perfect complement to such an outfit, a tie.
Do you remember when they used to call ties the what did they used to call the one, the fish tie? You know, the big wide ones. That was definitely the Stingray, wasn't it? That guy was wearing.
So you could actually get an old kipper tie and make a broken.
Yeah, that's it. The kipper.
The kipper.
He's wearing the Stingray. If you look carefully.
Which refers to the shape and not the aroma, hopefully. Of the said tie.
Yes.
Lovely.
Now, did I hear you mention, Carl, that Admiral Gugamelos is going to trying to be president? He'll be a fun guy, if nothing else.
Oh yes!
Yay!
Oh my goodness, Doug, you've arrived. With your hands full.
Is that actually his name, President Admiral Gugamelos?
No, I'll put it on the screen for everybody. It's a beautiful name, isn't it? His full name is where has he gone now? Admiral Enrique Gouvier y Melo, not Gugamelos.
Nice Gouvier Melos.
Yeah, but I wonder if anyone is called Gugamelos. And
I don't know, not unless you're a mushroom, I don't think.
They would be not mushroom in that family.
Oh dear! Now we're running.
There we go. That's his name there, Gouvier Melo. Which is, I wonder what that. I wonder if I do I hesitate to do this, but if I do a Google translation on Gouvier y Melo, I wonder what we come up with. Nice vocabulary building stuff. Guess what it comes back in the translation? Admiral Enrique Gouvier Melo. So it knows it's a name and it's not translating it for us. Antonio, please. If you can help with that, that would be fantastic. We watched your video, a poignant moment of you leaving Portugal. So you're back in the UK, Doug?
Yeah, much to my disgruntlement, because it's absolutely horrible. We're in the midst of a storm. It's grey, it's windy, and it's absolutely tossing it down with rain. It really is utterly horrible.
And it can be like that in Wales, of course. You're used to that, aren't you?
Oh well, yeah, we're a hardy species, I suppose, aren't we? The only thing is, I've spent that much time over trying to be b-Iberian over the last few weeks that I'm sort of acclimatized to sunnier skies, so I'm particularly disgruntled this morning.
Well, yeah,
and yesterday morning and the morning before.
I understand. And although you had a lovely time here in warmer weather, you took a bit poorly, didn't you? You thought you were a goner, didn't you, at one point?
Oh, well, no, that's just my state of exaggeration. But I was certainly quite poorly. I had a chest infection that just wouldn't go away. I mean, I wasn't alone. There was a few man cavers that were poorly with a very similar bug as well. It was pretty horrible, though.
Yeah, a touch of it. There was definitely something going around, wasn't there?
Yeah, you got over it in about 3 or 4 days, though. It took me literally weeks. So the first few days I was over in Portugal, I actually had to go and see the quack. So yeah.
It's not what you were expecting, is it? It's horrible when that happens. You go on holiday and you take ill. Did it help though? Did you have your bones warmed, and was it helpful to have that warm air?
Absolutely no question about it. It took just a few days for me to feel a hell of a lot better having been over there. And I'd been ill for weeks over here. It's on and off. It seemed to go away, and then it came back. It was a really weird bug. I'm not sure what it was. I don't think anybody really knows.
No, because you don't know which variant or what you've got these days, do you? You just got to deal with the symptoms directly. And we're fed up with giving these things names, I think, now, aren't we?
Well, I'm out the other side, and I'm quite happy about it, to say the least.
I'm so glad. And where did you go? Oh, we saw a few of your highlights, but apart from being ill and having to stay indoors for quite a lot of it, I suspect, and not venture too far away from home, you managed to squeeze a few destinations in. Can you give us a sense of your itinerary on your last visit?
Yeah, like you said, I had to spend quite a few. I didn't sort of mooch too far away from my base, which originally was Corteira/Villamora. But by means of rehabilitation, I every morning I walked along the lengthy promenade at Corteira, finding myself in a nice coffee shop in Villamora itself. So that was quite therapeutic in the sunshine. And then from there on in, I just visited a few different places in the Algarve. I went up to the Alentejo for a few days. We were, hang on a minute. Yes, Serpa was one place I visited. Which is a lovely little place. Like you saw, if you remember from the video, it's got this little central Praca the Republic. But it's basically, it looks like an Italian piazza. It's absolutely stunning and so peaceful and quiet, and nothing but the birds singing and the swallows nesting and a few locals enjoying the sunshine. Beautiful.
Yeah, and that's central. You would call that central Portugal, right?
Yeah, I would. Well, yes, it is central Portugal, isn't it? It's certainly nudging up towards the Alqueva Dam and Reguengos de Mongerais, and then you've got Evora slightly further up.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for all the vids. Great to see that one this morning, and we'll make sure we'll get our heads together and make sure we've got them catalogued on the YouTube channel, if that's okay for you. We will talk more about your b-Iberianism, because I think that struck a chord with you. We of course have talked a lot about our mutual love of Portugal, and since we've been exploring our b-Iberian status, I think it's fair to say you're a big fan of both Spain and Portugal. So we'll come back to that. Let's just see how people are responding to that earlier political stuff. I mean, what were you thinking about that when I was reading it out, Doug? Because
I admired your comment when you said that once upon a time you had the left and the right giving balance to I mean, you do need balance to any debate, because we don't have two sides. You don't have a debate, do you? Simple as that. And suddenly now, of course, it seems to be only one opinion counts, and that's that of the left or that of the right, and there's no meeting in the middle, which isn't debate, is it? That's just scraping for a fight. Which
autocracy. You could call it autocracy, which the gentleman was referring to.
Well, you could indeed. Yeah,
the loudest, most violent voice wins. We can do without that.
Okay.
All right. We have got questions. We had one that I forgot to mention earlier is, where can you buy bamboo bedding? Which sounds really uncomfortable. Apparently, it's some of the best bedding you can buy. Can we buy bamboo bedding in Portugal? And who designs the damn Portuguese apps and websites? Darren, sounding a bit peevish there. I don't know. They'll be designed by different people, won't they? On different sites there. Yeah, you're not a happy bunny when it comes to apps and websites in Portugal, Darren. That guy can't even spell his friend's name right. It's Salvini, not Slavini. Says Antonio F. Not a fan by the sound of it, of Ventura. If the right takes over in Portugal, immigration will be abolished, says Mr. S. Travel broadens the mind, and being in an authoritarian country at the moment, I would strongly encourage people to appreciate the freedoms they have now. Thank you, Pete. Having to go through checkpoints, scanning machines, and having to take your shoes off to be scanned and frisked is a pleasure few would welcome. We always pay for the right wing. That sounds like an airport, though, Pete. I'm not sure that's what you're referring to. Sunak spent more on fraudster friends, between 36 and 54 billion pounds. Scandalous, isn't it? Thank you for my coffee there, Mrs. M. Than he did on defence in 2021 as Chancellor. Still amazes me that they chase up benefit fraudsters and not wealthy mates. 'Twas ever thus, Pete? So it's a good thing to be b-Iberian and better pan-Iberian. Yeah, I suppose that's a good comment you could make from a political point of view, you know, transcending these political limitations and reasons to fight with each other and have the biggest possible view. Thank you, Mr. S. By the way, that was more than Truss and Kwarteng wasted with their idiot budget. This is UK centric now, but if you string them together with Boris's bar bill, it ends up being absolutely colossal public spending on fraud. Yes, of course it does. And we've got a history lesson from you were quipping about Admiral Kogomelos. Gilgamesh was a battle fought by Alexander the Great against Darius III of Persia, but they couldn't stop laughing. They were trying to fight, but they wouldn't have understood.
They were throwing mushrooms at one another. That's why.
It was a shiitake battle.
Is that they do it with tomatoes in Spain? So why not? Eh?
Why not? A few shots of pure home would cure that. Did you go to the top shelf at any point when you were had the chest infection and go for the folk cure that Tabitha's talking about?
No, I didn't. I didn't try anything other than I'd been on antibiotics over here in the UK before I came over, and I was given some to bring with me just in case a bit of a get out of jail card. So I decided to just leave well alone and see what my own immune system could do. So
when I was struggling with it, I did have a few of those café con charinos with whatever they had behind the bar. I've no idea what it is. I can smell it and taste it though in my coffee, and it was very reassuring. Apparently, whilst we have 300 days of sunshine here, you have 300 days of rain. Apparently,
no question about it. It's absolutely dreadful. Even in July and June and July, you'll get 3 good days and a thunderstorm. How very British is that, eh?
Amazing. Tabitha, coming to you. It's coming to the aid of the person who wanted bamboo bed sheets. I've got some bamboo socks, and I have to say they are some of the best socks I've had. I bought them at Auchan, going back to the supermarkets. People have been very slow to comment on their favorite supermarkets here in Portugal. But anyway, I discovered bamboo socks in Auchan, and I would agree then that bamboo, whatever they do to it, makes for a very comfortable
bamboo socks. That's bamboo.
Eventually, it is.
Yeah.
There might be something in the qualities of bamboo that keeps them quite fragrant, actually, Dougie.
Well, you never know. Just don't keep the pandas at bay, otherwise you won't have any.
They'll be eating your socks, won't they? Like that panda's got terrible bad breath. No, it's just been eating my socks. Okay, so Amazon ES might be the place for that. The person who wanted bamboo bed sheets. Sounds kind of luxurious, and it sounds like a little bit of a bachelor pad vibe going on there. Used to be black satin, didn't it? Perhaps now it's bamboo. Tabitha, aguardente is quite strong. Some people get a few drops in their beaker, usually after lunch. The café con chirino, I think that's what that is, isn't it, Antonio? Bon dia todos from Anna. Hey Anna, great to see you here, and love my b-Iberian status. So let's talk to Doug about his variety. Is the spice of life. So we have talked mainly about Portugal, of course. This is the Good Morning Portugal show, but you have a long-standing love for Spain as well, I understand.
Absolutely love it. I mean, there's nothing not. Mostly Spain is a lot more hectic than most of Portugal. I mean, with the exception of the Algarve and the big cities, of course. Yeah. But as a general rule of thumb, it's a more populous country. So you'll find that the roads are considerably busier, and the towns are considerably busier, and just generally the vibe is not too different to being here in the UK, but the weather being better, of course. So you've got the hecticness and the heat. So there's that. But as a rule, there are some absolutely for me that I enjoy going over to Spain because there's some beautiful places to discover. Not just along the coast, but inland as well. Beautiful country. So
same thing going on then, Doug. People's first impression might be of the Costa, in the way that people's first impression of Portugal might be the Algarve.
True.
And there's a whole lot more to discover. Tell us about
so much more.
Yeah, tell us about some of your favourites up north then, or in the central part of Spain.
Central Spain is a lot of it's not very populous. Actually, it's one of the least populous places in the whole of Europe. Actually, the central part of Spain, with the exception, of course, of Madrid, which is a hub. Yeah. And then, especially when you head off west towards Portugal, it gets less and less populous. A lot of agriculture, but it's where you find the strongest remaining Spanish culture inland, and you'll get all their traditional foods that the local people eat, and people like authenticity when they travel. So when you're in central Spain, I think you get a lot more of that authenticity than you will in the Costas, because that's all geared towards tourism, of course, bit like the Algarve, but in a nice way, of course. Excellent. So central Spain can be very arid, can be very hot, but in winter it can be very, very, very cold and snowy as well, depending on where you are.
Okay, so a similarity with central Portugal then, that the extremes of temperature.
Yeah. I mean, you've got your geopolitical division line, but the terrain's obviously very much the same as you meander between one and the other. Very much the same, actually. The interior of Portugal, especially when you're in the area of Beja and Reguengos de Monsaraz and places like that, you might as well say you're in Spain. Even the food, there's a sort of a fusion of Portuguese and Spanish food, or should I say Andalusian food, because that area was once all Andalusia, if we look in the history books.
Okay. Yeah. And you mentioned geopolitics. Spain has its obvious political ongoing challenges, more so it would appear than Portugal. Is that obvious when you're traveling, that there is a sort of demarcation and a wish for a separatism, or separate, should I say separate status rather than separatism?
When we were recently, me and Mrs. H, in northern Spain, we were in the Basque region. We were so taken aback by the sheer beauty of the place that politics were the last thing on our minds. Until we meandered into a bar in San Sebastian, where there was some Scottish flags, some Welsh flags, some Basque flags, including some Spanish flags, some French flags. They were all there, amalgamated on the wall, and these people firmly believed, the people who frequented this bar, this hostelry, that they were Basque separatists. Basically, that's what they fervently believed in, without the violence of old. Yeah. But having said that, the mood was light, and it actually was, believe it or not. There wasn't any animosity when we were there, at least, and we were made to feel welcome because of our Welsh connections.
Well, yes, and I will use the same. I'll say I know Doug Hughes next time I go in there. But you make an interesting point there, Doug, don't you? Along with a lot of other babies that have gone out with the political bathwater, there's almost an awkwardness about being proud of your local difference or wanting to honor your local difference. That's seen as an affront, almost, isn't it? And of course it can be, but that's part of the political debate that has been focused on, isn't it? It's not how great it is to have all this diversity, because a really important part of left-wing politics is diversity. However, when localism,
how boring would it be without diversity? Can I add?
Exactly. But in terms of local politics and people wanting to be proudly local, that can be a bit uncomfortable, can't it? That people are being sort of little Britons or little England.
It can be, but I think it's really, really silly to think along those terms. They are proud of their. I mean, a lot of it's down to the language they have in the Basque area and region, I should say, and the Spanish side of the Basque country tend to speak it more than the French side do. once you're over in Biarritz and that area, once you cross over the border into France, we went via a place called Irun, which is also a very beautiful place. You cross the river and suddenly you're in France, but you're still in the Basque Country, and it still has its traditional Basque buildings, which are sort of like a Tudor effect, embellished with a lot of Swiss styling, but painted red and white opposed to black and white, or sort of. Do you remember red lead?
No.
That they used to paint metal with, so it wouldn't rust. It was sort of that deep, sort of burgundy red and white. The buildings are absolutely beautiful. It's such a glorious, fantastic place to be.
And that's the political vision of the future, isn't it? And for peace and harmony, is to celebrate this diversity and difference, and what's beautiful about a locality, whilst having a trans global philosophy or consciousness. That we're all one, and we're all one, expressing ourselves in all of these beautiful ways. And
absolutely.
you wish for a better peninsula, could you? In terms of the expression of diversity. We're riffing on a theme, of course, because there is a Latin personality, and the Portuguese express it somewhat differently to the Spanish, and there's definitely an Iberian thing, and there is so much diversity across this beautiful peninsula that we're involved in. On that note, have you been to Gibraltar as well?
Yeah. Only fleetingly. I went there with a friend of mine about 2 years ago, and we went there to pick up a classic Jaguar XJ6 it was. So we drove over from Portugal.
That's a fantastic road trip and a script for a movie.
It is. I mean, we travelled from Faro, and then we obviously crossed the bridge in Villarreal to Ayamonte, and then proceeded towards Seville, and then there was that's just like a complete melee, and you have to weave your way through Seville, and then headed towards a place called Tarifa, where we stopped overnight, which is where there's actually a ferry that crosses from Tarifa to Tangier, a catamaran sort of fast ferry. And then from there we went to Gibraltar and crossed over into the city, into Gibraltar itself. And there are beautiful parts of it, and there are bits of it that are very industrial and quite ugly. So I think you need to sort of find your sweet spot in Gibraltar. No doubt there are plenty of them.
Is it Mate Square? There's a main square, isn't there, where I think a lot of people tend to go.
Of course, like every there's the main square is like we would describe the historic old town.
Yes.
Yeah. And it has a strange smell of, I hate to say this, but it smells of urine. Yeah.
And is that because of the urine, or is there another reason for it?
I've got a sneaky feeling it's got something to do with the old sewers.
Oh dear. Okay. Well, not the best review for Gibraltar this morning.
Well, it was awfully hot when we were there, and possibly that had a bearing on that.
A factor, possibly. All right. Enjoying talking to you about being b-Iberian this morning, and probably trans-Iberian this morning, because you're checking the box of Portugal, you're checking the box of Spain. We've just checked the box of Gibraltar, somewhat.
No, not quite.
Well, you've been there. Andorra, have you been to Andorra?
Andorra, yes, I have. That's the tiny little country in the Pyrenees, isn't it?
It is.
Yes, we have. We
yeah, technically that's part of the Iberian Peninsula, a bit of southern France and Andorra.
Yeah. We spent a couple of days in Andorra, literally a year ago to the moment. We're doing a road trip from the UK, and we travelled from the UK through France down into Toulouse, from Toulouse into Andorra, across the Pyrenees and down into Barcelona. Wow. Yeah, so Andorra's gorgeous. What a beautiful place that is. It's like the Basque of the north, of the south, if you like. Again, a place that has its, well, it is an independent region, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it is one of the 5 areas that makes up the Iberian Peninsula. And
Yeah.
I'm getting closer to the the Andorran and southern France part that is the Iberian Peninsula in terms of connecting with people. You've taken us closest to Andorra so far than we've
It's a
been.
beautiful place. I recommend anybody who wants to do a road trip across from France into Spain to Andorra is a place it's so beautiful and it's almost alpine, shall we say that?
Okay, so you've got an alpine vibe in Andorra. Their official language. Thank you, Mr. S, for being here this morning with your input as well. Andorra's official language is Catalan. There, going back to Darren's criticism of Portuguese websites, they're not broken. And it's not error 404. That is Portuguese for lunchtime. Okay, so even the Portuguese websites have a lunch hour or two, and that's what you'll see when they're not actually available to help you. Okay. Tax haven, Andorra, and it's a little bit more difficult, I think, to speak of the southern part. Oh, and an upscale ski resort, Andorra. It's a little more difficult to speak of that southern part of France as being part of the Iberian Peninsula, because not all of France is in the Iberian Peninsula, whereas all of Spain is, all of Portugal is, all of Andorra is, and all of Gibraltar is. Can you define it for us at all? I mean, you wouldn't know, would you, that you were in the French part of the Iberian Peninsula, for example? It's not going to be on the signs.
Obviously, the road signs are going to be in French.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that will define it. And then otherwise, no. I mean, somebody mentioned that it was a southern ski resort, and because of its elevation, because of the height of the mountains there, the snow lasts there'll be snow up there now, but obviously not as much as during the height of winter. But you could clearly see where the ski slopes were cascading down the side of the mountains, and it was quite a sight, actually.
Brilliant.
It was ever so weird as we got into the Spanish mountains, the Sierra Nevadas. The mountains were completely white, yet the temperature gauge on the car read 28 degrees. It was strange.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for taking us the closest we've been so far to Andorra and that part of the Iberian Peninsula. We've got to come back to Spain at some point, because you're an absolute star. And allowed me to create this slide of your of a recent.
You're a cheeky chappy.
Yeah, and I did check with you, didn't I?
You did indeed.
I don't know. Will you kill me if I use this? So good on you, Doug. You're a sport.
It's a long way to come and commit murder.
Yes, I can do it from this safe distance, can't I? 60% of the population of Andorra are Portuguese. That's interesting, isn't it? I skied Andorra, Grand Vilira 4 years ago. Great fun, except for the traffic getting in and out. So there's another little bit of Andorran feedback. Portuguese are like the English, they get everywhere, true. And the Irish and the Aussies, right? And Brummies especially. That's the same percentage of Portuguese in Luxembourg. That's a question for you. As a very well-traveled man, Doug, you will, of course, have been in a hotel or a guest house, and there will, of course, be Brummies never far away on your travels. Which races do you meet most who are fellow foreigners when you're traveling?
Which races? When I'm traveling,
you meet most.
You do see a fair bit of French people, German people, an awful lot of Danes like to travel to the southern climes of Iberia and southern France, and all the Danish people quite a lot. And I don't mind bumping into Danish people because their English is always superb, so we can actually have a conversation. I always find it strange when you're in I mean, and I agree with the principles of it, of course, but people bleat about the integration of Europeans and all that. So, but how many times are you in a hotel and people are talking and you go, huh? Yes. And you just don't know what the next person's talking, because they're speaking in their own lingo. And to be a fully integrated European, how many languages would you need to learn, eh?
Quite. Spain recognizes Basque as a language. That's not likely to become the ubiquitous language of Europe, is it? But Spain recognizes Basque as a language, official language, that is, whereas France doesn't. And
is that why? Is it? That's interesting.
Perhaps the Basque are incredible people. They have their own version of the Highland Games as well. There's something
really
Celtic.
How interesting.
We love the Celtic vibes of Iberia as well. I think
the other thing, you're in most parts of Spain, of course, and you'll find tapas bars. But in San Sebastian, they don't call it tapas. They call their version of it pinchos, which is Pinxtios, I think. Forgive me if I've spelled that incorrectly. Pinxtos. They call it pinchos, spelled pronounced pinchos. And basically, it's their own version of it. And there's a lot of anchovies and a lot of salt cod involved. Portugal prides itself on bacalhau and all that, but apparently the very, very best bacalhau, and they do call it bacalhau in the Basque region as well, comes from San Sebastian.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, well, obviously from the sea. but there's a very dedicated shop in San Sebastian that actually produces it.
Controversial there. Best bacalhau is in Spain.
Bacalhau.
All right. You need. There's a James Bond bar in Andorra. So okay, that will have put it on the map as well. Thank you for that. I'm loving this. We're building a jigsaw puzzle here of the Iberian Peninsula on Iberian FM. Our annex to the Good Morning Portugal show as we broaden our horizons here. And we would love a phone call from Andorra, from Spain, from Gibraltar.
It'd be marvellous.
Got James Blick organised. You know that we had the Spain Speak Stuart giving us a bit of a shout out the other day. In fact, I'll play. I
love the way you take him off. He's brilliant. You do it fantastically. You should do a whole show called Portugal Speaks in that accent. It'll be brilliant.
Let me try it now.
Good morning, Portugal. ¿Qué tal, amigo? Muy bien, Carl. Hope you are going well. Carl runs a channel there in Portugal called Good Morning Portugal, which has some interesting information on people that are interested in that country. So check Carl's channel out.
Tell amigos. He's great. And James Blick, I'm sure we'll get Stuart back at some point. And James Blick of Spain Revealed will join us on May the 5th, everybody. Just after my wedding anniversary on May the 4th. So we're looking forward to talking to James Blick. He's fantastic. His videos are superb. So there's a ski bar, the James Bond bar, skiing bar, après ski piste thing going on there in Andorra. Apparently 12 languages to be a proper European there. Unfortunately, English seems to be a second EU language. Interesting. So let's conclude today. Sorry, I'm keeping you. Are you all right for time, Doug?
Yeah, I'm perfectly good. Yeah.
Fantastic. We have, and the best way to pronounce this clearly is Peñíscola. Peñíscola sounds very unappetizing.
Well, it was a form of lollipop you can buy there.
A Peñíscola. Tell us about this, because you have written or you will be writing about Peñíscola?
Yeah, I've written one. I've submitted it, so it'll be a week or two before it hits the press, I imagine. So yeah, it's a gorgeous little place. It's surprisingly far from Faro. So it is. It's about, honestly, it's about 600 miles. I didn't realize if you drive it by car. So it's actually near Valencia and not too far from Barcelona. Sort of halfway, maybe halfway between Barcelona and Benidorm. But what a gorgeous little spot. The buildings are painted white like they are in Portugal, and the old town is positioned on an old on a tor, on a rocky outcrop. And Peñíscola actually means nearly surrounded by water. That's what it means, nearly an island. That's what it translates to, and that's what the old town is, nearly an island. It's just on a tor, a little bit like the tor you have in Ilfracombe, but much bigger, of course. And then you've got the castle, it's crowned by the castle on top. There's a lighthouse up there. There's loads of old streets to wander around. I know fewer than 2 beaches. You've got Praia, not Praia, Portuguese. Playa do Norte, Playa do Norte. And then there's another beach there as well, which the name of which escapes me at the present time. But both of them are marvelous, shallow, sandy beaches, brilliant for kids and families. It's just a marvelous resort. It really is.
All right. And how long will it take us to get there from Portugal?
Oh gosh, a long time. It would be about 4 hours drive from the eastern part of Portugal, possibly a little more. But at least the drive, you can take the coastal route, or you can go inland and travel via Granada and places like that, which makes for a very interesting and scenic and enjoyable trek across southern Spain.
On that note then, Doug, and as we conclude this morning on the Good Morning Portugal show and Iberian FM, those wanting to explore their Biberianism, their Biberian status, what road trips would you suggest from Portugal into Spain as a starter to check one's Biberian curious status?
If you haven't done any of these treks before, then I would almost certainly recommend, especially if you're you're not afraid of driving in cities, because one thing you don't really want to be doing in Spain, unless you're a very confident driver, is driving their cities, because they're just manic. But having said that, the drive from, say, East Portugal, say Faro or somewhere like that, into Seville, and possibly Cadiz, would be a great way to sample the beauty of Spain. Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, I did a lovely Iberian video for you when I crossed the Guadiana by ferry from Villarreal de Santo Antonio into Ayamonte.
And that's how you can do it by foot. We've just on that floating bridge, of course. Yeah, that was great, because we had.
That was Alcutim, a little further north.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right. So that, talking of Ayamonte, there, have you been to the LPA Culinary Bar? A great restaurant there. We've just uploaded a video about that because Bobby was on talking about it just recently. Have you been in there?
Is it in the central square, or is it somewhere in the middle of the town? I mean, the town isn't that big.
The food is extraordinary, Doug. So pop that on your list and book ahead.
Oh wow, yeah. LPA. There's so many lovely tapas serveries in Ayamonte, because a lot of people travel over, get the ferry over from Villarreal or Montgord. I called it Montegordo, but I was very well corrected. It's Montgord. So you travel from Montgord or Ayamonte or Villarreal, and you get the ferry over, and you'll have a tapas lunch, and then you find your way back on the ferry, then back to Portugal, and a Portuguese evening meal. Best of both worlds. That
can be in our Are You Biberian coffee table book. All these lovely trips to and from, either way. It's Portugal to Spain, Spain to Portugal, however you like. If somebody hasn't already done it, there must be some books and some guides about crossing the border there. From Viana, here's another one. Here from Viana de Castelo to Santiago de Compostela, Galicia, Bula as well. Thank you, Mr. S. Really enjoyed your input this morning. LX Portugal, Bebby Dorm. Yes, drink and sleep.
Bebby Dorm.
That was made earlier on. We had a serious question about higher education earlier on. That was from Fugia CP. Hey, can you tell me about higher study in Portugal? I've not studied at that level in Portugal, but I have worked within an incubator at the Aveiro University, and I was really impressed. I think the education system it seems great from what I can understand in Portugal. What would your comment on that be, Doug?
Not qualified to comment on that one, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
So
I think we need to do a special on that. So thank you for prompting that, Fugia CP. Great to see you here, and you, Alex. Portugal as well, from Bilbao, San Sebastian as well, etc., etc. I think that's carrying on from Viana de Castelo up there. We were in VRSA and drove to Ayamonte for tapas pretty, but I was in a mood on that day. I wonder what peed on his chips.
Bony fish, probably.
Bony fish. Is there anything worse? Bevy Dawn. And Andrew Gilchrist, higher study is good here and the fees are reasonable. Thank you for that, Lord Gilchrist.
Morning, Andy.
Right, brilliant. What's this? Joao F. I've been to Bebby Dorm. Just remember the trip there and the trip back. The time in between was That's how a lot of people don't remember Bebby Dorm, I think, or Bevy Dorm there. Always great fun talking to you, Doug. Thank you for exploring being b-Iberian. That's quite a mouthful, isn't it? This wonderful peninsula of ours. And James is saying Peñíscola, peninsula, of course, they have a similar sound and meaning, don't they? Surrounded
by water. Yeah. I never thought of that, actually, to be fair. Thank you for that.
Is it too late to get that in the article? Montgord is Algarvian accent. LX Portugal, you're very welcome here. Do please come back. Maybe phone in sometime on 913-590-303. Last words to you then, Doug. I hope your weather clears up and I hope you have managed to have a beautiful post-Easter time over there in Wales. What else would you like to, how would you like to bid us farewell today?
Well, just to thank you very much for having me on the show again, and I made it by the skin of my teeth. I had all manner of computer problems today, so I'm on today via my mobile phone. So I hope it's come through clearly for you.
It works, Doug. It works very well. So well done. You didn't let it fluster you, and you managed to join us. Because Bobby wasn't able to join us. It would have been quite the thing if you weren't able to as well. So thank you for making that effort and not panicking. It must have been your BBC training, I think, that kept you up.
Possibly. It doesn't stop me panicking in other walks of life, though.
And when are you back? Folks, keep an eye out for Doug's writing in the Portugal News. When are you back here, do you think, Doug? When can we have a drink?
I'll probably leave it now if I can, unless something crops up. I'll probably leave it now until September or October when it's slightly cooler. So I don't tend to frequent either Spain or Portugal when it's in the sort of late 30s and 40s. It's just too much for me. So I'll sort of heading towards the end of summer, I suppose.
So I hope to shake your hand and share a Sagres or Superboc with you.
It'll be wonderful. I'll try and make it up there. It might land in Lisbon for a change rather than fly to Faro, and then that would be possible.
Faro, I've seen some pictures of Faro recently, of Brits arriving. Yes, choose your airport wisely, and hopefully that would have calmed down a little bit.
Well, they had a dispute, didn't they? They had ground crew, EasyJet ground crew that were, off work. It's strike, basically.
Right.
So that didn't make life easier in Faro, I don't think.
If it ain't one thing, it's another.
So there is.
Okay, mate. Have a great day, and see you after. We'll have a glorious British summer in that case, because those are the best.
We'll do our best.
All right, take care, and bye.
Ciao,
for now.
ciao.
Cheers.